Hey, economic warriors. It's your boy, the boss of Boss Economics World, here to break down the latest financial clown show that's got Wall Street sweating, Main Street stressing, and your grandma's retirement fund trembling like a leaf in a hurricane. Buckle up, because today we're diving into the Trump-Powell cage match, a drama so wild it makes the Real Housewives look like a knitting circle. And trust me, this ain't just about two suits yelling at each other, it's about your money, your future, and whether the US economy is about to get yeeted into the abyss. Let's go. Picture this. It's July 2025, and Donald Trump is back at it, stirring the pot like a Michelin star chef on a reality TV cooking show. This time, he's flirting with the idea of firing Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, you know, the guy who's supposed to keep the US economy from turning into a Mad Max-style wasteland. Trump's been dropping hints in closed-door meetings with congressional Republicans, and of course, because nothing stays secret in Washington, the media got wind of it faster than you can say, rate cut. Trump's response. A classic Trumpian two-step, deny, deflect, and leave the door cracked open just enough to keep everyone guessing. No, we're not planning on doing anything, he told reporters on July 16, 2025, before adding, I don't rule out anything, but I think it's highly unlikely, unless he has to leave for fraud. Oh, Donald, you sly fox, or should I say, economic arsonist. Now, if you're a regular viewer of Boss Economics World, you know we don't just report the news, we dissect it, satirize it, and serve it up with a side of cold, hard truth. So, let's peel back the layers of this onion and see what economic dumpster fires are smoldering underneath. Spoiler alert, it's not just about Trump's ego or Powell's job security. This is about the independence of the Federal Reserve, the stability of global markets, and whether your next mortgage payment is going to feel like a punch to the gut. Let's break it down, boss style, from the surface-level drama to the deep, systemic issues that could screw us all. First, let's talk about the obvious. Trump's beef with Powell is personal, political, and predictably over the top. Ever since he nominated Powell to lead the Fed in 2017, Trump has treated the central bank like his personal piggy bank, demanding lower interest rates to juice the economy and make his administration look good. Fast forward to 2025, and Trump's still at it, calling Powell a knucklehead and blaming him for not slashing rates fast enough. The Fed's benchmark rate is currently sitting at 4.25% to 4.5%, and Trump wants it hacked down by 3 percentage points. Basically, he wants borrowing to be cheaper than a clearance sale at Dollar General. But here's the kicker. Trump's not just mad about monetary policy. He's also throwing shade at the Fed's headquarters renovation project, claiming it's a gold-plated boondoggle that proves Powell's unfit to lead. Trump and his allies are screaming about cost overruns and lavish spending, as if the Fed is installing diamond-encrusted toilets while the rest of us are eating ramen. Powell, for his part, has called the media reports inaccurate and even requested an inspector general review to clear the air. But Trump's already hinting that these renovation costs could be the cause he needs to legally fire Powell, a move that would make Machiavelli blush. Now, if this were just a reality TV spat, we'd grab some popcorn and enjoy the show. But this is the Federal Reserve we're talking about, the institution that controls the money supply, sets interest rates, and basically keeps the global economy from imploding. So, let's dig deeper into the economic issues at play here, because this drama is about way more than Trump's Twitter tantrums. Here's the biggie, folks, the Federal Reserve is supposed to be independent. That means it's not a political football for presidents to kick around whenever they want to score points with voters. Why does this matter? Because the Fed's job is to make tough, long-term decisions about monetary policy, like raising interest rates to cool inflation, even if it pisses off politicians who want cheap money to fuel short-term growth. If the Fed becomes a puppet of the White House, we're in deep trouble. Imagine a world where interest rates are set based on election cycles, not economic data. Spoiler alert, it ends with hyperinflation, market chaos, and your savings account looking like a sad emoji. But Trump's not the first president to meddle with the Fed, he's just the loudest. Back in the 1970s, President Richard Nixon pressured Fed Chair Arthur Burns to keep rates low to boost his re-election chances, and the result was stagflation, a toxic mix of high inflation and stagnant growth that made the decade feel like an economic horror movie. Fast forward to 2025, and Trump's antics are raising the same red flags. Analysts are already warning that if Trump follows through on ousting Powell, it could roil financial markets and lead to a consequential legal showdown over the independence of the central bank, as reported by major outlets on July 16, 2025. And here's the data to back it up. According to a 2024 study by the International Monetary Fund, IMF, countries with less central bank independence experience higher inflation volatility, think 2.5% higher on average annually, and lower economic stability. Look at Turkey, where President Erdogan has repeatedly fired central bank governors who dared to raise rates to fight inflation. The result? Inflation hit 85% in 2022, the Turkish lira tanked, and ordinary citizens were left scrambling to afford basic goods. Is that the future Trump wants for America? Because if he keeps treating the Fed like his personal ATM, that's exactly where we're headed. Now, let's talk about the markets, because if there's one thing Wall Street hates, it's uncertainty. When news broke on July 15, 2025, that Trump might fire Powell, stocks, the dollar, and short-dated yields all took a hit, though, as economist Derek Tang noted, the reaction was muted because Trump quickly backpedaled. But here's the scary part, Tang also warned that this could be a trial balloon to test the waters, and if Trump gets emboldened, the window of acceptability for Fed interference could shift for the worse. Translation: the more Trump normalizes the idea of meddling with the Fed, the more likely markets are to freak out. And if the Fed's independence does get broken, as hedge fund founder Thomas Thornton put it, the bond market could go haywire. Why? Because investors start worrying about unchecked deficits and out-of-control U.S. debt levels, which, by the way, hit $35 trillion in 2024, according to the U.S. Treasury Department. If the Fed can't credibly commit to fighting inflation, long-term interest rates could spike, making borrowing more expensive for everyone, from the government to your local small business. That's bad news for your 401k, your mortgage, and pretty much every financial decision you make. Here's a real-world example. In 2023, when the UK government under Liz Truss announced unfunded tax cuts, markets panicked, thinking the Bank of England would lose its grip on inflation. The pound crashed, bond yields soared, and Truss was out of a job in 49 days. Now imagine that chaos, but on a US scale, with Trump's finger on the Fed's trigger. Yikes. Let's get to the heart of Trump's obsession: interest rates. Trump wants the Fed to slash rates by 3 percentage points, which would bring the benchmark rate down to 1.25% to 1.5%. Why? Because lower rates mean cheaper borrowing, which boosts economic growth, at least in the short term. Trump's got his eye on federal borrowing costs, too, since the U.S. government is shelling out over $1 trillion annually in interest payments on its debt, according to the Congressional Budget Office, CBO, in 2024. Lower rates would ease that burden and make Trump's fiscal policies, like tax cuts and infrastructure spending, look more sustainable. But here's the problem: the Fed isn't slashing rates because it's worried about inflation. Despite cooling from its 2022 peak of 9.1%, U.S. inflation was still hovering around 3.5% in mid-2025, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS. That's above the Fed's 2% target, and Powell's made it clear he's not cutting rates until inflation is under control. Trump, of course, doesn't care about long-term consequences, he just wants the economy to look good for his political legacy. But if the Fed caves to political pressure and cuts rates prematurely, we could see a repeat of the 1970s stagflation nightmare. And trust me, nobody wants to relive the era of disco and double-digit inflation. Oh, and let's not forget the Fed's headquarters renovation, the most absurd subplot in this whole saga. Trump's trying to spin this into a scandal, claiming the project's cost overruns are grounds to fire Powell. But let's be real, this is a distraction. The Fed's renovation budget is a drop in the bucket compared to the $6 trillion federal budget, and Powell's already called for an inspector general review to shut down the noise. Plus, the Supreme Court ruled in May 2025 that presidents can't fire Fed officials without cause, so Trump's lavish spending argument is flimsier than a dollar store umbrella. But here's the deeper issue: by focusing on petty grievances, Trump's undermining public trust in the Fed at a time when confidence is already shaky. A 2024 Gallup poll found that only 39% of Americans have a great deal, or quite a lot, of confidence in the Fed, down from 53% in 2019. If Trump keeps chipping away at the Fed's legitimacy, it could make it harder for the central bank to do its job, especially during a crisis. So, what's the bottom line, economic warriors? This Trump-Powell drama isn't just a sideshow, it's a warning sign of bigger problems. If the Fed loses its independence, we're looking at higher inflation, market instability, and a weaker dollar. If Trump gets his way on interest rates, your savings could get eaten alive by inflation, and your mortgage could become a financial albatross. And if public trust in the Fed keeps eroding, we're one crisis away from a full-blown economic meltdown. But here's the good news: you've got Boss Economics World to keep you informed, entertained, and ready to fight back. So, what can you do? First, diversify your investments, think gold, international stocks, and inflation-protected securities, to hedge against Fed-related chaos. Second, stay informed about monetary policy, because the decisions made in Washington affect your wallet more than you think. And third, call out political meddling when you see it, because the Fed's independence is worth fighting for. Alright, economic warriors, that's all for today's episode of Boss Economics World. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Trump-Powell cage match, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. And hey, if you think Trump's got a point, or if you think he's totally off the rails, drop a comment below. Until next time, keep hustling, keep learning, and remember, in the world of economics, the only boss you need is me. Peace out.